Welcome to the video where I'm going to be teaching you why exactly low carb diets are probably the worst thing that you can do if you're serious about fat loss and having a physique that you're proud of. I'm all for making sure that you have the best chances of succeeding when it comes to reaching your goals. And even though low carb dieting might seem successful in the short term and you can see some progress, it's probably one of the worst things you can do for a number of reasons. So if you are somebody who's adamant that carbohydrates are the devil and they're the things that are stopping you from achieving your goals, I'm going to completely shift your beliefs in this video and explain to you why that's not a good idea and what you should do instead. Let's get into it. So why low carb diets always fail long term? They fail because they remove the very fuel that you need. Here's the illusion that most men fall for. Because low carbohydrates can work, but only short term. That's why it's seductive and popular in the fitness industry, because if you remove carbohydrates, your calories will drop massively. Once you deplete glycogen in the body, which come from carbohydrates, you are also going to flush out loads of water, because every gram of carbohydrate that you have in your body, you roughly hold 3 to 4 grams of water as well. So if you take away 40 grams of carbohydrate, I don't know why I said 40 grams because that's going to make it harder to do my maths, but I'm going to go for it. That's going to make you lose up to 120 to 160 grams of water. Bang, did it. Yeah, you can lose a large amount of weight in a short term, in a number of days, but most of that is going to be water, not body fat. So whilst it will give you that high of seeing a massive weight drop on the scale, it's not going to necessarily all be body fat, which is what you want, right? Because only body fat is going to make a difference to how you look in the mirror. So when inevitably carbs return, and they will, because who wants to cut out carbs for the rest of their life? Glycogen will fill up again, water will return, the scale will jump up high, and the psychological damage begins. The narrative that is in the fitness industry when it comes to men and choosing this diet is that no carbs will get me lean, which basically means if I eat carbs, I will stay fat. And this belief drives Monday to Friday restriction, weekend carb blowouts, because once you cut these out, you start craving them more, and it makes it very difficult for you to adhere to your diet. Then comes the guilt, then comes the reset, then comes the repeat. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, this is not fat loss, it is water manipulation plus emotional fatigue. The hidden calorie mechanism. Now, here's why low carb diets actually work in the short term. You eliminate an entire macronutrient. There are only 4. Carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and alcohol. Yes, alcohol counts as its own macronutrient. Cutting out carbohydrates mean that you cut out a large amount of calories because you take out the most prominent ones. Carbohydrates are in everything. Most of your usual foods, bread, pasta, rice, all of these bad foods. Of course, if you slash a large amount of calories from what you're eating already, your weight is going to drop. So if your maintenance is around 2,500 and you suddenly eat 1,200 or 1,500 because you take out the carbohydrates, you're basically running on empty. You cannot function like that. Let's be honest. If you're a guy who's like me or any of my clients, you have more stuff going on than 100% focusing on your fitness journey around your life. You have other things that you need to have energy for. And that's why carbohydrates are so important. The problem with most busy guys is that you need energy for work. You need energy for your training. Carbs are your main fuel for training hard. You need it for your decision making. Carbs are your main fuel for your brain. And you need energy for stress management, which also helps you recover. Carbohydrates are the primary fuel source for high output living. So if you remove that fuel, your performance will drop. And when performance drops, training intensity drops, strength drops, muscle retention drops. And this happens because muscle is an expensive tissue. You lose muscle, you have a lower metabolic output, and you have a harder time maintaining your progress long term. So another reason why you shouldn't cut out carbs is because a lot of the time when people want to drop body fat, they also want to build muscle. They want a physique that they're proud of. And if your training performance drops too much, then you're not going to give your muscle any cause for or any reason to maintain. So yeah, short term, you'll lose a lot of weight. However, when it comes to the end package and what you want to look like, you're not going to have that body that you want. So a blanket rule that I have with all of my clients is that we want to have carbohydrates as high as possible whilst losing the required amount of weight. That's what you need to think about. Stop thinking about cutting out carbohydrates. It is ruining your physique, your body, and how you want to look. Let's talk about why low carbs is actually rubbish for sustainable results. Because if you cannot see yourself avoiding carbs for the next 5 to 10 years, then why build a fat loss phase around eliminating them? You can only see progress on a specific diet for as long as you can keep it up. A lot of people try low carbs because they can see quick wins in the short term. However, every time I ask them, I'm like, oh, so you're never going to eat pizza again? You're never going to have pasta, burgers, chips, potato, bread? And they're like, oh yeah, I will. But I'm thinking, as soon as you add those foods back into your system, you're just going to gain water weight again. You're going to gain the calories again. Like, there's no point in starting something with a method that you're not going to keep up for the rest of your life. Everybody wants rice, fruit, bread, potatoes, social meals, and low carb diets remove the very foods that make dieting livable. If you over restrict, you will increase the amount of cravings that you have. Cravings will increase your impulsive behavior. Busy men already battle stress, which causes that impulsive behavior around food. And adding a restriction increases pressure, which eventually leads to you exploding and binging. Like I've said in multiple videos and in multiple pieces of content, the more you restrict, the more likely you are going to blow your load in one go because you can't have self-control that much for the rest of your life. Let's compare two people who do different dieting methods. One tries low carb diets, one tries high carb dieting. So two men have the same maintenance calories, 2,500. Both start their diet on 2,000 calories. Both consume 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, so their calories are literally identical. However, man A has higher carb and moderate fats. Man B has low carbs and higher fats. Now, the fat loss over the 8 weeks is pretty much going to be identical because calories determine fat loss. They're the number one thing, calories. That's why I say with clients who argue, should I eat this, should I eat that? Like, you can pretty much eat anything you want as long as you stick to a certain amount of calories. But obviously, if you want muscle mass, if you want energy, we have to figure out, okay, where are the calories coming from? So yeah, theoretically, calories are the only thing which are going to determine your fat loss. But we want to make sure that those calories are filled with the right stuff. Over the 8 weeks, fat loss is identical. But over 12 months, the man with carbohydrates, he is able to train harder, he maintains his muscle, he socializes, he sustains the plan, he experiences fewer cravings, and he preserves his metabolism. The person on a low carb diet is struggling with training intensity, he feels flat, he craves restricted foods, he eventually binges, regains water and fat, and then repeats the cycle. Long-term outcome is behavioral, which means we need to consider what's going to help us stick to the plan in the best way possible. And let's be honest, what's going to be easiest when it comes to sticking to a diet? It's going to be having a diet which is filled with the foods that you love, right? Correct. Well done. Cool. So what effect does the low carb diet have on your muscle and metabolism? We've spoken about this briefly, but let's get into it. So when you have a low carb diet, your training output becomes lower and you can't train as hard. The lower output that you have means that you have less muscle naturally over time. Lower stimulus means you lose muscle mass. Lower muscle mass means you lose your metabolic rate. Then calories increase rapidly again because the diet becomes unbearable. This is a natural thing, right? So let's say for the 8 weeks, you are on a low carb diet, you drop weight, but your metabolism goes down as well because you lose your muscle mass. You're going to get to a point you're going to be like, fuck this. I want to eat everything that I've missed. I've done this 8-week shred diet. I'm going to eat what I want now because I've lost the weight. You naturally eat more calories than you did before. And because your metabolism is lower than it was before, you're going to find it easier to gain weight. And the result is faster fat regain. Your response is going to be, all right, let's drop carbs even lower. And this is how people go in the yo-yo cycle. And the more you repeat this cycle, the lower your metabolism goes, the higher your calories will go, and the harder you will find it to lose weight. That's why for a lot of people, when they first come into the process and they're like, okay, I want to lose weight in the most efficient possible way, I try my best to keep their calories as high as possible. However, when they have been in this yo-yo cycle for ages and they've been doing this for years, I naturally have to drop their calories further or lower, so they are able to put themselves in a deficit. Whereas some people, when they go through the process and they raise their metabolism, they build muscle mass, they eat a large amount of food, they can have close to 10 to 12% body fat and have a firing metabolism, so they're eating nearly 3,000 calories. But if you don't do things right, you're going to make fat loss harder. Please consider this. The psychological cost of doing all of this is, well, your low carb diet creates all or nothing behavior because you're up and down. You have a fear of social eating because every kind of social scenario includes some form of carbohydrates. You have carbohydrate anxiety. I don't want to eat that. Should I eat that? And you have a poor relationship with your food. You have weekend overcompensation because your willpower can only last so long and you're going to binge eventually. And this also teaches avoidance, not control. And avoidance of any sort of food or situation never builds mastery of your body and health. And this is what we need to understand, guys. A lot of people are avoiding the things that they need to resolve in order to maintain their progress, and avoiding it and not creating a solution or figuring out how to change your behavior or include it or do all of these things makes that thing your weakness. Not getting to the root cause of why you can't stick to the plan because of a certain lack of control is the reason you are never in control. You cannot ignore this stuff. Something to note. So the better way we do these things is, instead of eliminating carbs, structure them. When it comes to protein, you want 1 gram per pound of body weight, and this is essential for helping you maintain your muscle mass. When it comes to fats, you want 0.4 per pound of your body weight. However, I would say for those deep on a diet, you want to make sure that you have at least 30 to 35 grams daily for hormonal function, and carbohydrates fill up the remaining calories. Ideally, especially if you have a low amount of calories, place them pre and post your training workout. Keep mostly whole food sources to help you stay full because they have more volume, they have more fiber, allow structured flexibility. So on the weekends, go out to eat, enjoy yourself, but make sure that you are being intentional and it's not a binge and there's a lot of lack of control. Also, bear in mind that carbohydrates are fuel. It's calories that determine fat loss, not the amount of carbohydrates you have. So please keep them in your nutrition and your diet plan. Having structure between all of these determines sustainability, which is what we want to achieve, right? We have to switch our thinking from short-term quick results to what is actually going to help me stay lean long term. And having this balance is going to be the thing. So let's think about the long-term perspective and the right way to do things. If you have 15 to 20 kilos to lose and you have 6 months of dieting ahead, you cannot run extreme protocols like cutting your carbs out. Busy weeks do not disappear. Stress doesn't disappear. Social life doesn't disappear. Your plan must survive those things. And low carb diets are not optimal when you have all of these things going on. They are going to be the thing which helps you stay on track and stay consistent and have the energy to not binge and lose control over your nutrition. Please add them in. So the truth about low carb diets is that low carb diets don't fail physiologically. You can technically lose weight with them, but they fail practically. They fail psychologically. They fail behaviorally. And it removes the very fuel that you need to train properly, perform at work, maintain muscle mass, and sustain discipline. Sustainable fat loss requires a moderate deficit, a high amount of protein, adequate fats, structured carbohydrates, proper training, and long-term thinking. Not elimination of any macronutrient, no panic restrictions and removing all of the foods that you like, not water manipulation, which is basically what low carbohydrates is. Structure is what will beat these extreme methods every single time. So guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope after watching this, you will never touch a low carb diet ever in your life. And I hope you approach your body transformation journey in a smart way. See you in the next one.